Hey everyone, my name is David and I'm the music teacher who blogs at makemomentsmatter.org. You can also find my ideas on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, and a variety of other platforms when you search for my name, David Rao, or you search Make Moments Matter. One thing I wanted to tell you before I got too far into this video, and that fan is going to annoy me. Okay, so one thing I wanted to tell you before I got too far into this video is that I have a brand new podcast out this weekend, and it was really exciting. I got a chance to talk with the amazing Aileen Miracle of Mrs. Miracle's Music Room, and we had a chance to talk about back to school and some of the things that we loved about back to school and some of the things that stressed us out about back to school. And so it was so great to talk with Aileen and to get her perspective. I hope that you'll go to wherever you get podcasts, Apple Podcast or Stitcher or TuneIn or maybe SoundCloud, and search for that. You can find that episode when you look for Make Moments Matter, a music education podcast, or you can search my name probably, or you can just click a link from my blog. I'm sure you can get to it that way. But that podcast with Aileen Miracle is really awesome, and I had so much fun chatting with Aileen this last week. So, today, I wanted to just sort of share what I'm going to be doing in this video. It's going to be a little bit different. But as always, if you want to see the notes from this video, I started doing this last week, but whenever I chat in these chats, whenever I talk about a specific resource or link or something, I'm going to try and put a link to that on a special page on my blog. If you go to makemomentsmatter.org/videos, makemomentsmatter.org/video, or if you click, I don't know where it would be, somewhere. If you're watching this on your desktop computer, probably there's like a caption or something over on one of these sides, and it tells you a little bit about what this specific video is about, and there's a link there that gives you a link to where the notes for this video are kept, where the recap is. And in there I'm going to try and put in any resource or book or anything I talk about in this video. I'm going to put a link there so that you can go and see it, or you can go and get it, or whatever. There are already some things linked there, and that's, like I said, in the comments here on your screen, I hope. Or if you go to makemomentsmatter.org/video, you should be able to scroll down and find Musical Mondays and find that. If you have any troubles, just send me a PM and I'll, a private message. I don't have to abbreviate since I'm talking to you. And I can send you that link. Okay, and as always, if you have comments or ideas or thoughts or questions as I'm talking, please leave the comments here on the feed, because probably other people also have those questions or comments, and so it's helpful for everyone. It sort of creates a conversation about the resource or about what we're talking about, or I use it like this or whatever. If I don't get a chance to actually talk about it in the video, I'll go back and leave a comment later this week. And try and respond and react to that. So thank you for leaving comments as we go, or questions or whatever, and I'll try and respond to those later, especially if they're from Dee Yoder, because I love her. Okay, so my format's going to be a little bit different. In the last two videos, I sort of gave a brief overview of my kindergarten through 5th grade lessons and all of the things that I'm doing in those lessons, sort of a really quick recap. And then I did a deep dive on one grade and sort of talked specifically about that grade and showed you all the resources I'm doing in that lesson. So the first week I talked about 2nd grade, in the second week I talked about kindergarten, and I sort of gave you a big overview of those specific lessons and showed you everything I was doing. Well, I'm in a sort of a weird situation. I have 1,200 students at my school, and I'm the only music teacher, so that creates some sort of interesting things, and one of those is that I'm on an 8-day rotation, which means I see kids once every 8 school days. So the last time I did this video, a week ago, I told you about all of my K-5 lessons. I'm still teaching them. Those same lessons I will be teaching through Wednesday. I will not get new lessons until Thursday. And so guess what? I'm going to be really good at those lessons by the end of the rotation. If I wasn't so good on day 1, I will be really good on day 8. But I'm still teaching, so it wouldn't make sense for me to give you a recap. So instead, my plan is to talk just a little bit at the beginning about how I plan in general and some of the resources I use. And then I'm going to talk specifically about 5th grade and the 5th grade lesson I'm doing this week. So I just want to share some sort of general ideas about how I lesson plan and how I do that. So if I'm planning out lessons, I always look at my larger goals for the year or for the quarter, and those are sort of based on, if you have district standards, if you have state standards, if you use the national standards, you sort of break that down, and you go by what is, most important. We don't technically have district standards, so I sort of go off of what I've used at my old school districts and what I've done before, and that helps me plan. As I'm planning my specific lessons, I use the same template, and I wanted to show that to you. So hopefully this will work, that I can flip around the video. We'll see. Oh, yes I can, but it's way too close. Okay, let me try and move this a little bit. This did not happen a minute ago. There we go. Okay, so here's just a sample of a lesson plan template that I use. And if you look at it, you can sort of see that I've got different areas. I've got up at the top, I've got focus area, so it says singing, pitch matching, tone, harmony, all of those things. I currently have the old national standards listed in the main box here, and it has some sort of check boxes, which is nice. So as I'm going through and doing my plans, I can check off like, oh, this is hitting singing alone with others, or this is doing improvising melodies. And then over here I have a spot for my objectives, so the learner will be able to, and then my district checkpoint. And currently, since we don't have a district standard, I just use my state checkpoints, so my Georgia music education checkpoints. And this template is one that I've sort of adapted from my really good friend Stephen Rue, who's a brilliant teacher in right outside of Kansas City in the Raymore Peculiar School District. And this is sort of a take on his template. So in here, I have review and present. So on the review box, I just say like, is there something in this lesson that we've done before? That helps me remember like, oh, I don't need to go as in depth with it because it's not new. And then present would be what I'm currently teaching in this lesson that's brand new. I like having the materials needed box because that gives me a heads up. If I only have a couple seconds between one class and the next, oh man, I need to grab out the xylophones, or I need to make sure that I have my iPad or whatever. And I include pretty much everything I'm going to need, or I need to have a PowerPoint open or something like that. And then I also include key vocabulary that I need to for sure hit in the lesson. That we're always going over vocabulary, but I like to have the important things for that specific lesson ready to go. And in the box, it helps me remember to make sure that I say it several times in the lesson. And then this is something I borrowed from Stephen, which I love. He separated his lesson into 3 different acts. You see Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. And I think that's fun because, with kids, it doesn't make sense to do one thing for the whole span. They just can't do it. I have 45-minute classes and my kids just can't handle 45 minutes of the exact same thing. So I break it down into either different activities. Sometimes I'll subdivide and put like a line here or something that shows one activity here, one there, one there. For my kindergarten lessons, for sure, it's like activity, different things. But even if you have one song or one specific thing that you're doing for the whole day, you could put your steps in here. And that especially helped me when I was a new teacher to write out what I thought the steps would be. First this, then this, then this. And so that's sort of why I use these acts. There's even a box in here for a transition. So if you're doing a transition song or a transition activity, you could sort of mark that in. And then at the bottom, I have a spot for notes and extensions. And I use that sort of like after a lesson, like I might say like, need to focus on this next time, or, so-and-so's class missed it because there was a fire drill or whatever. And then that helps me plan, 10 days later or whatever when I'm planning. And that helps me know what I need to do next. Or maybe as I'm doing this lesson plan, I put in here like following time. So like maybe I'd say like song, 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 next time do the dance, or next time do the game. And that helps me remember as I plan. Down here, this was when I only had a few teachers per grade level, and I would put their names in here and then check off when I taught that lesson, because I used to have a really wonky schedule where I would see like one teacher and then I'd see another one. It was just weird and hard to keep track of who knew what. And so I would check that off as I went. Now I don't do that because I have 8 different teachers per grade level, so that's a little bit difficult. So let me show you my actual 5th grade lesson, and this is what I turned into at my administrator this week. They were fine with it. maybe your administrator wouldn't be. But one of the reasons that I keep these things up here, I don't personally feel like I need those there anymore, just because like I know what I'm doing, but when my administrator looks at it, they don't really know what the lesson's about. So I continue to keep checking these things and also my focus areas just so my administrator can sort of see like, oh, they're focusing on whatever. I include the abbreviations for the state checkpoints. Like my administrator doesn't know what they are, but when they see something like this, they know like, oh, that's aligned with a state checkpoint. They maybe don't understand it completely, but they get it. I also make sure that my objective matches my I can statement up on my bulletin board. My administrators always love the part for assessment because that's a buzzword and whatever. But I do put that there to help remind myself like, oh, you're assessing this thing. So here you can see I am using it. We're reviewing the echo and body percussion. I'm presenting where their new seating chart is, their new family in Alabama Gal. I talk about how I need the Alabama Gal PowerPoint. Obviously this is like sort of messy. It's not. I'm not fancy. I'm just a normal teacher, and I get messy. So Alabama Gal PowerPoint. I need ties. I need my rock candy, and then in my vocabulary, I talk about rock candy and real and families. And I should actually have metaphor and simile in there too, but forgot to write that down. And then I have just a basic breakdown of my lesson, which I'll get to in just a second. Okay, so as I'm planning, the other thing I wanted to show you. And this template is free in my Teachers Pay Teachers store. There's a link to that on the links page if you want it. And it's editable, so you can customize, you can add new music standards, you can do whatever you want. But what I will say is if you're going to use that, don't use it on a Chromebook, because if you do, all this formatting goes away and it sort of just washes out the whole document. So don't do it on a Chromebook. Actually open it up in Microsoft Word and not in like Google Pages or whatever it's called. Oh, and there's something else I was going to say about that, but I don't remember. Anyway, yeah, it's free in my Teachers Pay Teachers store. If you have questions about that or trouble editing it, it's a Word document and it can be weird. So sometimes if you edit it too much, you might do something and like all these boxes will move. So welcome to Word. That's Word. Okay, this is Oh, good. Okay, you're sorry. I feel like it froze. This is a song and poem map, and I use this as I'm planning to. And this is from 5th grade from last year. And basically, whenever I do a new song or new game or new anything, I write it down here, and I write the month that I did it, and I have it color-coded by song or poem or book. For other grades, I have, like this is 2nd grade, I have song or poem or book or dance, or maybe I'll have something else. But the reason I do this is as I'm planning, or at the end of the semester, if you have 20 minutes and you somehow end up with like an extra class in a rotation and you're like, I just want to do a review. This is really helpful for you to know like, oh yeah, we did Alabama Gal back in September, or we did Chicken on a Fence post already. And so that is a great way to keep all of that, keep track of all of that. And this is another freebie in my Teachers Pay Teachers store. It's just something that's really been helpful for me as I'm planning. Now, especially, I can look back at last year's plans and go like, oh, well, I'd rather bump this up here or whatever. But it gives me a sort of idea about like, oh yeah, and I was hitting that and I was hitting that. I also put in little other abbreviation things just to help me remember like, oh, we did la, so, mi, do there or whatever. Or we introduced half note, or just different things that I will know what that means. I would not turn this into administrator or send it to a friend or whatever, because they wouldn't really know what it means. But for me, it helps me keep track of everything, and that's really important. So these are two things that I use when I am lesson planning and when I'm thinking through my year, and these are both freebies in my Teachers Pay Teachers store if you want them. So, okay, let's talk about 5th grade, if I can turn this back around. Okay, so I'm sorry if it froze up in there. I'm doing this on like my really old iPad, and so if it freezes, I would say let me know, but because it's frozen, you wouldn't be able to. So I'm hoping that it's still working. Okay, so 5th grade, I want to talk just a little bit about how I do it and what I use. So when 5th grade comes in, this is the 2nd time that I've seen them. The last time, you know, we had to go through like the school rules, and we had to go through, you know, like all these things that we like have to do. So in this lesson, I want to have a little bit of fun. I want to get them up and moving. I also have to get them in their seating chart. So that's stuff that I have to work through. So when they come in, we start with body percussion. We start with echoing. That's something we did in the last lesson. And so I do something like this. And I always start with that one. I know some people hate that, but like I always start with it because kids know like we're starting. Okay. So I do that and they echo back. And I say, that was great. It's just too loud. Let's try again. And they try that. I'm like, that was amazing. You got the rhythms perfect. It was just too loud. And I do that 3 or 4 more times, and they get exasperated. And they're like, what do you mean too loud? Because those kids like. And I say, oh man, that was so good. Now, when I asked you, or when I said it was too loud, and I asked you to fix that so it's not so loud, what did you do to change the sound? And the kids will say like, well, they always go for the easy, not good answer first. Like, oh, we didn't go so fast. And I was like, oh, you did it slower? And they're like, yeah, we were slower. And I was like, oh, like this? And they're like, no, that's not what we meant. And so I eventually get them to figure out how to say, I didn't hit with such force, I hit with less force, or maybe my hands didn't move so far and so fast, they moved a shorter distance. Those are things that I try and get them to say. The main things that I ask them to sort of basically look for are not hitting so hard, and maybe moving your hands not so far. And the other thing that I ask them, they don't always get right away, is I say, what else did you do? And eventually a kid will sort of like show me like, oh, I did a golf clap. I'm like, yes. So you changed your hand position. Instead of going like this, you did something like this. And you didn't hit as much of your hand and made less of a sound. We play with that. This is all something that ORF people do a lot. It's sort of a creative play, exploratory play, but it gets kids to thinking about what sounds they're making and why, and how you can make different sounds. So then I say, okay, great. Take your hands like this and repeat after me. They do that. And I say, okay, instead of doing that, make like an X with your hands and try this. Great. Okay, now instead of having hands straight up and down, can you make them into like a C shape and try this? Did that change the sound? And so we go through a couple different things. I say, see if you can find a different way to make a clapping sound. Either louder or softer, I don't care, but see if you can make a different way to make a clapping sound. So then kids are exploring. And as they're exploring, I am watching and I am saying stuff like, ooh, I see someone did this. Ooh, I see someone over there who didn't use their fingertips. They only used their palms. And as I'm saying that, some kids are watching me and then they're trying it. Other kids are getting inspired. If I say like, oh, I see somebody not using their fingers, well then some kids are like, only use their fingers. Or maybe they do the backs of their hands. Or maybe they get to doing a lot of that on their own. If they have trouble coming up with ideas, which most of the time they're okay, because it's 5th grade again. If they have troubles, I demonstrate just a few things. I'm like, what if we use the backs of our hands? And I'll just say that, and then I let them try it and explore it. What if we took away our thumb, or took away, another finger or something? What would that sound like? And I let them try it. And they're exploring, and they're trying, and they're doing lots of things. I'm like, that is so great. And as they're doing, I'm saying, oh, I love that I'm seeing, you're just using your fingertips on your hand. Oh, that's great. Oh, I see someone over there doing blah, 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 blah. And I'm complimenting and giving them ideas, and that encourages them to do more. So eventually, after like a maybe 30 seconds, I'm like, great, okay, now repeat after me like this. And I do patting. And you can't see my knees, but I'm patting my knees. And they do it, I'm like, that was great. Just too loud. And they do that again. Oh man, that was so good. It's just still too loud. And so then we get into that again about like, why is it too loud and what can we do to change the sound? And they're already primed now, they know the routine. So I say, see if you can find a way, or see if you can explain to me how we can make our sound quieter. And they'll say, don't hit with so much force. Or they'll say, you know, hit on a different part of your leg, or not as far away with your hand. And all those are great. The other day I saw a girl do this. Well, she was wearing a hoodie, so it's not quite the same, but she pulled her hand and put her hand in her hoodie like that, and when she patted, it made less sound. And I love demonstrating that to the classes that don't try that, because then they think that's so amazing. They're like, oh, it muffles the sound. Or I'd say some of you are wearing shorts. If you pat on your bare skin versus if you pat on your clothes, that changes the sound. And so we explore and we do some of that, and then we'll do clap and pat or whatever. My favorite thing to do with 5th grade is then I say, great, you know, we've explored, we've tried all these different things, and I've looked and I've pointed out some things that some kids are doing, and I say, great, now be my echo. And you know kids are always like, I can't snap, or whatever, you know, like this is their Achilles heel. So some kids are like, once I start doing that, they're like, oh, I don't like this. So I say, repeat after me. I'm like, great. And this time, instead of saying too loud, I say, too quiet. Can you make that louder? Well, I can make it louder because I knew that I was going to need to be louder. So I didn't, you know, go quite as hard the first time. But then it's fun to see them do the opposite. Not of how to make yourself quieter, but how to make yourself louder. And so they play around with that. And eventually, usually there are one or two kids who go, if I do both hands, it doubles the sound and makes it louder, and then they love that, and they're like, and it's in stereo or whatever. Like, so it's just fun to play around with them and to get them sort of playing, to explore different ways to pat. Can you pat up your arm? Can you pat on your head, or can you clap up your arm? Can you clap on your head? Does that still count as clapping, or is that patting? You know, if you're patting different places, it gets them thinking, and it starts your lesson in a really good place to come up to think about possibilities and think about what else can you do. And that's a really big principle in the Orff Schulwerk world, is what else can you do? How else can you do it? And after doing all of that exploring, then eventually we lead them into turning that into something else. But in this lesson, I just do the exploring with body percussion because I want to give them a focus on body percussion. I want them to be started at the beginning of the year thinking like, music is a place where we can explore and try new things. And so that's why I spent a little bit of time doing that right away at the beginning. So we do our echoing, we do our clapping, and then I take a little time because I use seating charts to start my class usually. Usually they'll come in and sit there, and then that helps me take attendance. I have to take attendance. My school asks us to do it, but also like, you know, if I have a fire drill, I have 1,200 kids, so I could grab a roster, but that roster might be 3 weeks old. So when I do, you know, a check-in at the beginning of each class, that gives me a chance to say, like, if there's a fire drill, I grab my iPad and go out. And then when I get outside, I'm like, this person was present at the beginning of class. I saw them with my own 2 eyes, so I need to make sure that they're here. For 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, a lot of times I'll just do a visual check, and if they go into their seating chart spot, I can assess that quickly. Sometimes I'll like clap a pattern and make them clap back. Sometimes I'll put rhythms up on the board and I'll have them clap what they see, and then that's their attendance check-in. There are a lot of different things you can do. For kindergarten through 2nd, a lot of times I'll sing to them and they'll sing back. There are a billion ways to do that, like, hello, Brendan, or whatever, and they go, hello, Mr. Rao. Or you could do, where is Brendan? Here I am. You know, you could come up with whatever you want, but that check-in gives you a chance to make sure that they're all there. And I think that's important for my class anyway. With 1,200 kids, I need to make sure I'm keeping track of kids. So in this lesson, the 2nd lesson of the year, they need to know what their new attendance or their new seating chart spots are. So we take just a second, and as they're going out, I mentioned this last week, but I make a point to, on my roster, write in their name, the correct name, because if you know, it says Christopher on the computer, maybe they're Chris, or if they're, you know, Christopher James, maybe they're CJ, and I want to use the name that they use. And there's some kids who are easier and some kids who are harder, and some kids, like today, I had 2 kids who was like, I had like 3 Jadens or something, and I mean, it was just like, I need to know who is who. And then one of the great things about the app that I use, which I'm figuring out how to do a live video about this and for you to be able to see my iPad screen, one of the great things about the app I use is that I can take a picture of the kids and you can sync it to their name in the app. The app is called Idokio, and there should be a link to that in the notes from last week. But the nice thing is then it's like, well, there are 3 Jadens. I can put their picture on their profile. I can go, oh, you're Jaden R and you look like this. And you're Jaden C and you look like this. So we take the time in this lesson to sit everyone in their right spots, take their picture, and then later I can go back in and put all their faces on so that then I have that going forward. And one of the great things about Idokio is once you have your seating chart or whatever with the kids' faces and their names, you can export it to a PDF. So if you ever have a sub, you can just print off the classes and they have their faces and their names right there to be able to use in the lesson. I love the app. I'm figuring out how to share it with you in a live video. I don't know yet how to show you an iPad from an iPad, but I'm working on it, so I'm going to see if that's possible. So I take the time to do that, and then I move on to my song for the week, which is Alabama Gal. It's one of my favorites. I learned this in my ORF levels. My very first ORF level, I'm pretty sure, with Dina Byers, who is fabulous. And so I just use it forever. And with kids, I go through it and I sort of make it into a story. And so what I do is I have this resource. It's called, oh great, and it's backwards. Sorry. I don't know how to fix that because iPad. So I have this resource. It's called a Favorite Folk Song Kit. And you can't really see it because it's really bright. There you can sort of see it. Now I look like a ghost. It's awesome. So this is a freebie in my Teachers Pay Teachers store, but I use this because it gives some information about the song. We can go through, we can talk about some of the vocabulary. That's one of the vocabulary things that comes up. I can put the verses up if I want to. There are the lyrics. I can show them a picture of the dance when it comes to that, or a bigger picture of the dance. There are just a lot of options. So I project this up as I'm talking, but I won't today. I'll let you just explore that because it's a freebie in my Teachers Pay Teacher store, so you can go back to that anytime and find that. And then I won't look like I have jaundice as you're looking at that. But anyway, so I talk to the kids about this girl, and for this song, we all live in Tennessee. And they're like, no, we don't. We live in Georgia. And it's like, yeah, but for this song, we live in Tennessee. And they're like, why? I'm like, then I hit the next slide. Because this song is from Tennessee. It's a very old song. So we're going to pretend that we're from Tennessee. And in Tennessee, all the kids in Tennessee and in our neighborhood all know this dance. It's a really popular dance. It's a great dance, and everyone knows it. But guess what? There's a girl, and her cousin from Alabama is visiting. And this gal from Alabama, gal's just another way to say girl. This gal from Alabama, she doesn't know the dance. And, you know, because she's the guest of honor, we're going to let her go first in the dance. So the first part of the song was like this. Come through in a hurry, come through in a hurry, come through in a hurry, Alabama gal. I'm singing up high because I'm a tenor. If I sing it low, it'll sound really weird. I'm just playing this on ukulele, and it's very easy. You can play it. It's an F. I do it in F in my class, so it's just, all you have to know is an F chord and a C chord, and that's easy. That's the first part of the song. It goes, come through in a hurry, come through in a hurry, come through in a hurry, Alabama gal. And then, as we're singing that, you know, the girl from Alabama, the gal from Alabama, she's supposed to go through in a hurry. But she just stands there because she doesn't know the dance. She doesn't know. It's obvious she's not moving. So then we sing this. You don't know how, you don't know how, you don't know how, Alabama gal. And she goes, no, I don't know how. Well, yeah, we know because you're not moving. How are we going to be able to do this? I'll show you how, I'll show you how, I'll show you how, Alabama gal. So those are the first 3 verses, and they're really easy, because if you know the story, they're really easy. First, we say, come through in a hurry, because that's the first part of the song. She doesn't do it, so then we say, you don't know how? How? You don't know how? You don't know how, Alabama gal. And then we say, I'll show you how, I'll show you I'll show you how, Alabama Gal. And then I go through back with the kids and I sing it again. I give them an example. By now it's pretty repetitive. And so they've sort of picked up on the way it's working. And so I have them sing back with me those 3 verses. And we think about it as a story. I think the narrative helps them figure out what goes in what order. Because come through in a hurry, you go first. You don't know how, I'll show you how. And then, because we're showing her how, we're so good. We're like the best at this. We are so good at this. Like, we are as good as, what are we as good as? And then I sort of go into, I think that I'm pretty quick on this song. I'm as fast as a Ferrari on this song. I'm just zooming through. Or maybe you'd say, I'm as, and so I sort of go into similes here and metaphors and making comparisons. And I say, what are some similes or metaphors that you can think of? And sometimes kids will say things. I sometimes give them an example like, I'm as tall as a giant, or I'm as, smart as an iPhone, or whatever. And I always tell them, my grandma used to say when I was a kid, she'd say, you're growing like a weed. Because weeds grow really fast and kids grow really fast. And she always said, you're growing like a weed. And I'd always say, please don't spray Roundup on me. Anyway, so we go through similes and metaphors and kids like that. And then I say, you know what? In our little small town in Tennessee, because this was a long time ago, in our little small town in Tennessee, we didn't have a Publix, didn't have a Kroger, didn't have a Meijer, didn't have a Costco. Everybody went to the general store to get whatever they needed to eat. And at the general store, if you were doing really good, your mom said, you can pick out a treat. They only had like maybe 3 treat options, 3 candy options, and not all of them were good. They had licorice, and kids were like, bleh, licorice. And then I said, and they had peppermints. Kids were like, I said, and the third thing they had was this stuff. And we call this rock candy, because it looks like maybe it could be a rock, like a crystal, but it's not really a rock. What is it actually? And most of the kids know, oh, it's sugar. Yeah, and they love that. I love having actual rock candy in my classroom. And I did this song for a couple years, and one kid, they went on a field trip to like a living history museum or something, and they brought me back rock candy, and I've saved it. One, because they brought back the rock candy and it was not in a wrapper, and I was like, who tasted that on the bus on the way home? I don't want to eat this myself. So I'll keep it as a visual. But also because I wanted to keep it as a visual. So I have never eaten this, and I just have it as a visual. But in the favorite folk song set, I have a picture of it and sort of an explanation of what that is, in case you don't happen to have rock candy handy. So then I say, man, yeah, rock candy, it's basically just sugar, and it's flavored. Man, what do you think this flavor would be? Kids will say, orange. I'm like, yeah, what else could it be? And this sort of goes back to the beginning of the lesson when I say, how else could you do it? What's another way you could do that? So I say, what else could it be? So the kids are like, tangerine, peach, mandarin. Sometimes they come up with some really cool ideas. So then I move on to this one, and I say, what do you think? What flavor do you think this one could be? Kids will say blueberry, or blue raspberry, or cotton candy. And if a kid says blue, I won't take that. Blue's a color. Blue's not a flavor. What could it be? What flavors do you know that sort of go with blue? And so then we go into those sorts of things. What about this one? Some kids will say green apple, or watermelon, or mint sometimes, or lime. And I love when kids say mint. Kids are like, now. I'm like, well, what color is gum? And they're like, green. What flavor is it? Mint. So it's fun. A lot of kids will think that sugary, well, it can't be mint. Well, it could. I don't know. It could be. It's green. A lot of people make that. And then I do the pink one, and we get into strawberry or cherry, whatever. A lot of kids say cotton candy or bubble gum. And I love when they say bubble gum, because I'm like, remember how the only 3 treats at this general store were licorice and mint and rock candy? Did I mention bubble gum in that list? And I'm like, no. So if they don't have actual bubblegum, can they have bubblegum flavored stuff? If bubblegum doesn't exist, how can they have the flavor? So that's sort of fun. And we talk about that. So anyway, we go through the rock candy, and then I say rock candy was people's favorite candy. And so because of that, we use that in our simile, and we say, in our metaphor simile, I'm pretty sure it's a simile, because you have to use like or as. So I say, I am as cool as rock candy. I am as good as rock candy, because rock candy's the best. And then I sing, ain't I rock candy? Ain't I rock candy? Ain't I rock candy? Alabama gal. Those are the 4 verses. So there's come through in a hurry, you don't know how, I'll show you how, and ain't I rock candy. And those are the 4 verses. And then we get ready for the dance. Once I know that they can sing it and they sort of know all the parts, then we get ready for the dance. And I like teaching things in a sort of as a narrative and giving context to things, because I mean, you could just teach the words of this song, but it doesn't make sense to talk about rock candy unless you put some context to it. You know, like, what does rock candy have to do with dancing? You know, so to give them that context of putting it into place and a time and, you know, just a context, I think that's so important and vital, and not just teaching music, but teaching life and historical connections. And that's one of, you know, our state and national standards. We're making connections to the arts and things outside the arts. So then we get ready for our folk dancing. And I have this little trick, which I borrowed from my friend Jennifer Donovan, who I took levels courses with for ORF levels, and I think she borrowed it from someone else. But what I do is I have all these neckties in my classroom, and I have them already pre-tied, and I have them on a hook in my room. And so what they're there for is they're there for folk dancing, and they're already pre-tied. They're big enough to go over my head, so if they can go over my head, they can go over almost every other kid's head. And what I do is I take these ties and I hand them out to half of the class. And I make sure to preface saying, like, they're not just for boys, they're not just for girls, they could be for anyone. Doesn't mean you're doing great, doesn't mean you're doing bad. I'm just throwing them out randomly. So if you get a tie, just slip it over your head. Don't mess with the knot, it won't do anything really. I didn't do a normal tie knot, I did a knot so it stays stuck, because if they're playing with the, you know, zipping up or down of the length, it's just a mess. So just slip it over your head, that's it. So then I toss out ties to half of the class. And then I say, if you have a tie, for this song, your partner cannot have a tie. And if you don't have a tie, your partner must have a tie. Now, this is great for a couple reasons. It makes it really easy for me to see in a second who is who and who is where, and have you paired off or not. The other really nice thing is if I have, you know, 3 or 4 boys or 3 or 4 girls or whoever who are just egging each other on and should not be partners, you just know it, well then give them all ties. Or give none of them ties, and then they can't be partners together. So it's a classroom management thing, but it also helps out with the folk dance in just a second. So I hand out the ties to half of the class, and then I say, okay, you got to find your partner. If your partner has a tie, you can't have a tie. If you don't have a tie, your partner has to have a tie. And then they pair off. In my classroom, I have tape on the ceiling. I have tape lines on the ceiling, and I'm pretty sure I blogged about that before, but if not, you can go to my Instagram and sort of see it. But I have them up there for a lot of different things, for teams and things. But for this song, it's great because our dance setup is a real setup, which is a long way set. And so there are 2 lines looking at each other. So I would say, if you have a tie, stand in the green line, and your partner will be in the yellow line looking at you. And that just frees up so much time of like, okay, make a line here. You know, it just like, stand into the green if you have a tie, and then look across. Your partner's going to be in the yellow line looking at you. It just makes things really easy. Now I have these dance instructions in the free PowerPoint that I made for this, if you want to download them, but I'll go through them really quick. So basically what you do is you have your long way set, which is the 2 lines looking at each other, and I tend to go up, if I have to jump in, if it's an odd number of kids and I make it even, if I need to have a partner, I will take my partner and we will be the head couple. I don't use that word couple, but I'll either say the magic 2 or I'll say the pair at the top, whatever. So if I need to be in it, I will go to the top. If they have an even number of kids, I'll go to the head couple and I'll say, hey, can I borrow your partner? And I will demonstrate the first couple through. So for the first part, come through in a hurry, you grab hands with your partner and you sashay down and you sashay back. Easy. While everyone sings, come through in a hurry, come through in a hurry. Well, you go through in a hurry. And you can either grab both hands and sashay down, or you can grab one hand and skip down, or whatever you want to do. I once had 2 boys, of course, who they grabbed hands and they went like this. They like tangoed down and tangoed back, but less like a tango and more like, what's, not javelin, what's that old-timey thing where the knights have the, that is javelin, isn't it? I don't know. Anyway, and they fight and they're trying to spear each other, but they were trying to spear other kids as they were going down, so that was a good time. So you go down and you go back. The second part goes, you don't know how, you don't know how. So for this one I say, look at your partner, and you're going to do this. You're going to walk in, 2, 3, pat, back, 2, 3, stomp, into jousting. Yes, Karen, sorry. 1, 2, 3, pat, back, 2, 3, stomp. Yeah. So, you don't know how, you don't know how, goes 1, 2, 3, pat, back, 2, 3, stomp, 1, 2, 3, pat, Alabama gal, stomp. Okay, so those are the actions. Both of the lines do that. And then I say, okay, great, let's do those 2 parts. Head couple, you get to start. And they go through in a hurry. And then they come back and then we do the 2-line thing. Because this is like the easiest part. You could do this again, like, I don't think I've said this before. You could do this with 3rd grade, 4th grade, 3rd grade, whatever. I don't know if I do it 2nd grade or below, but it's up to you. And so I go over what we do in the first 2 verses. And I love to say, it's a good thing you went through in a hurry and you got back here by the time the 2nd verse started. Because if you didn't, oh, the other day I was going through in a hurry and the girl who I was with stopped and said, I gotta tie my shoe. And she sat down in the middle of the long way set. And then we got to, you don't know how. And I felt like I was in a trash compactor because both lines were coming at me and they were going to pass. So you got to get down and back to that top. Otherwise, the sides are going to come in and they're going to crush you on the next verse. So you got to really get through in a hurry. And then they love that. At first, they're like, I don't know about the sachet thing, but if you mention that, then they're like, all right, we got to get down and through in a hurry. They think it's funny. So we do those first 2 parts, and then the last part, the head couple on I'll Show You How. The head couple goes down and out and around the set, and at the bottom they make an arch with their hands, and the lines will follow and go under. So the way I do that with kids, and it's really hard to show you this on a video, instead of just in a classroom, but I say, okay, my partner, we go out and around and make an arch, and the lines don't follow. So we just do our part first as the head couple. And so we go down and out and around the lines and we make an arch. I say, great! Okay, let's go back to the top. So I go back up to the top and I say, now this time, the 2nd time, you and I, partner, we're going to do the same thing. But now this time, my line is going to follow me. And your line is going to follow you. And we're going to go out and around and our lines will follow. And then when we make our arch, they're going to go around and under the arch. For some reason, when the head couple does it alone first, they feel more confident in it, and the other kids can sort of see what's coming. And then when you add in the lines to follow and go under the arch, it just makes a lot more sense for them. I don't know if that made sense in this video, because it's hard to not show you, because I actually am showing the kids. But it makes sense for the head couple, in my class, for the head couple to do it first, and then the lines follow. And then we just go through it and do the whole thing. We go down through in a hurry, we go, you don't know how, you don't know how, and then we split like a banana. And then we run through as much as we can through the song. We get through as many couples as we can. I play my ukulele, they all sing. If I have to be a part of the action, I'll take my ukulele with me, and I'll play, and it mostly works. And my partner for the patting part either will pat elbows or whatever, but we find a way so that I can keep playing, the kids sing, we get through as many kids as we can, and most of the time, it's great. I've done this with small classes, I've done it with large classes. If you do it with really big classes, like 36 or so, last year I think I did it with a class of 38. If you have that happen and you have the space, is what Katie's asking, if you have the space, split them into 2 long way sets so that you have, maybe a set of 8 partners on one side and a set of 8 partners on the other side, or whatever you have to do to split if you have the class space. Because otherwise you're going to have this ridiculously long set and no one's going to be able to get down and back and it's going to take too long. So if you can split them, great. If you can't split them, see if you can do something else with like maybe half the kids. Like maybe half the kids accompany on ukulele, or half the kids play on xylophones, or half the kids keep a steady beat on wood blocks, or I don't know. You could play around with that, but I would not have maybe more than 8 or 9 pairs in a long way set if possible, because it gets oppressively large. and hard for you to manage. So I do this in 5th grade, and a lot of people do it with younger grades. Great. If it works for your younger grades, that's awesome. The reason I do it in 5th grade is that in 4th grade, we do something called Paw Patch, which uses the same sort of setup, the long way set. And so when kids get to 5th grade, this is the second time I've seen them. And so I want to do something that feels complex for them, and I want to get through something fun and fast, but because they've done Paw Patch and because they're 5th grade, they can pick it up a little faster. This is like a shoe-in lesson, and every class can get it. Even this difficult ones can get it. And so I do this on purpose, even though it's maybe easier than what they really can do. It's the second lesson, and I have to take time away from the lesson to spend time doing seating charts and stuff. So this is a win every time for me, and that's why I plan it here at the beginning of the year. You could do it with other grades, and with different classes, with different schools, with different whatever. It works for different people. But that's why I plan it early on in the year for my 5th graders. There's something else I was going to say about that song, but I don't remember exactly what it is. Like I said, if you want to accompany on ukulele, it's really easy to do. It's F and C, which also makes it easy for other kids if you have ukuleles to accompany for parts of it. There are other ways you can differentiate and make it sort of fun. But the favorite folk song kit has a lot of information that I try and use it as much as I can because I like giving kids context. The thing about the favorite folk song kits that I've done is that I try and include just like anything you could ever need for that song. So maybe there's a picture of people dancing, or maybe they're explaining some of the tough vocabulary, or maybe there are different things, different, title slides or whatever. When you go into PowerPoint, what I do is I delete maybe half the slides that are in there that I'm not using for that lesson. I just delete them out or pull them off or whatever, and I only put in what I really need. But I put all that information in there so that you can have it in case you want it. What I've also done with those slides is I've also, in some schools where I have the bulletin board space, I print off the slides and then I put them out in the hallway so that as kids are walking back and forth to the lunchroom or whatever, they can get reinforced on what that song is and what we learned. Parents love to see that stuff. And if you could put those printed out slides along with maybe pictures of some kids from those grades doing it, it's like a home run and your administrators will love it. So I have all of this stuff included in that kit in case you want to use it. And like I said, for this song, it's a freebie in my Teachers Pay Teachers store. So at the end of the lesson, I try and get through as many kids as we can. If not, I'll say to the class, like, well, we'll try it again next time. We'll see if we get through everyone. And usually this will be my starting activity for the next class. So that's Alabama Gal. That's sort of all the stuff that I use for it. If you have any questions, please pop those in the comments or any. But leave those there. Like I said, I've got links on that page, makemomentsmatter.org/video, and you scroll down and look for Musical Monday. If you can think of a better name for this, let me know. But I put it in there so that you can get to all of those links. If you like these favorite folk song sets and you want to get them, I've got 2 freebies in there for Luby Lou and for Alabama Gal. If there are others, you can either buy them as a single or buy them as a bundle or whatever, but they're all pretty much the same format as Alabama Gal, so you can sort of see it in preview. One thing you should know about Teachers Pay Teachers, they're doing a bonus sale tomorrow. So everything on my page is going to be 25% off if you use the code at checkout. And my friends and I are going to have a gift card giveaway coming. You can find information about that tonight on my Facebook page. But if you're a TPT person or Teachers Pay Teachers, you like browsing and you've wish listed things, you can get it really cheap. The next sale won't be until probably Thanksgiving. So if you're interested and you want to get some of that stuff, go and check out the freebies in my store, and then the sale starts tonight at midnight or tomorrow morning, I don't know. But if you use the right code, and it'll have it on all the banners and stuff, you can get 25% off. So that's something there in case you're interested. If you have questions about my ukulele or questions about where I got any of this stuff, shoot me a message. Continue to leave questions throughout the week and I'll try and answer them. Let me just make sure that I haven't missed anything super important. How much time do you spend on procedures for 5th grade? Depends on the procedure. It depends on what it is I need to teach them. It depends on the kids. I try and incorporate some of those procedures in each lesson, Patricia, so that I'm not spending time like, and this is what you do, and this is how you get this out, and this is how you whatever, because like you've lost them. So in the lesson, I'll say like, oh man, that's so great. And now as you're doing this, you know, don't forget, you got to keep your hands to yourself. Or if we're doing partner stuff, you always, you know, we always say, sure, you can be my partner. And then if you think they're gross, I'll go to hand sanitizer later. Like I incorporate those into my lessons as we go. I don't do a lot of like, these are all of the rules for everything in my class. Katie said, I did this with 48 third graders. Holy smokes. But you had 4 mini long waist sets. That's great. Good for you. Fantastic. 2 sets. Yeah, I would say when you have big groups like this, if you have the room to split them up, split them up. And if you have a visual for them, like I have tape on my ceiling, that makes things a lot easier. Or you can tape the floor. Or what I've also done before is I'll put like a cone on one end and a cone on the other, so they can sort of see like, there's the end of one line, there's the other end of the line, and that sort of helps them too. Okay, we talked about that. Jousting. Sorry, I don't know what did I say? Not jousting is what I said. Dee says, I found Lay's at the dollar store, and since you can't tie a tie, that works. These ties were all free. I just sent an email out to the staff at my school and said, hey, does anybody's significant other have really ugly ties that you want to get rid of? Bring them in. Or do you have ugly ties you want to get rid of? Bring them in. I'll take them. And I just threw them in my dryer at home and got all the cooties out, and then I just tied them and used in my room. You could send an email out to parents. Yeah. Good. Alabama gal. Why is 5th grade so hard? I don't know. It's hard. Karen, I promise Idokio is worth it. Just give it some time. I'll do a video about how I use it, and hopefully that'll make things a little bit easier. Okay, let's see if there's anything else that I missed, and then... Yeah. Well, thanks so much for watching. Like I said, there's a sale tomorrow on Teachers Pay Teachers. You can ask me questions anytime this week. There should be links on my MakeMomentsMatter.org page. And as soon as this video is over, it will be posted on the Facebook page, so you can watch from the beginning if you want. I'm also posting it on YouTube in case you want to watch there. So I hope this has been helpful. I know a lot of people struggle with 5th grade, but it can be really fun. You can do it. Even folk dancing in the first week. So thanks so much for watching, and have a great week, everyone.